Um, Sorry about that. So I don't know if you heard anything I just said or not. So I'm just quick overview of what I just covered, and that is yes, a business can refuse service to someone with a service dog, a legit service dog, but under certain conditions. Um, when a person comes in, I was mentioning businesses are, in my opinion, fall under three spectrums. One end of the spectrum is afraid to approach anybody and getting sued, or that Karen that's going to be yelling and screaming that they don't ask anybody anything. And we all know what businesses do that, especially one big chain that does that. They don't ask anybody coming in, no questions. You can just walk on in with your dog and nobody stops you or asks you anything. Then you have the other end of the spectrum where businesses, they read a small little snippet of the law and just telling everybody, no, your dog is not allowed in here. And then you have the businesses that do understand the law and follow it correctly. I started off talking about this side, the spectrum, where they're so afraid because they don't understand the law. So I'm trying to break it down for them and let them know when somebody enters your business. Now, I understand if you are a business that has been letting dogs come into your establishment and you haven't been stopping anybody or standing on the law that you're allowed to stand on, when you initially start this, you're going to get some pushback. Get ready for some pushback. Get ready for the Karens. But I do strongly believe that if you stand your ground and do this consistently, not just to one or two people, but consistently, maybe after a little while, people will realize, okay, this is not a business that I can bring my dog to, and they will stop. But it's going to take you and your staff being consistent, fair, knowing the laws, and it'll change. I can almost guarantee that it will. But the two questions that when somebody walks into your establishment, there should be no business, unless you are pet friendly, that I can walk in with my dog. That thank you, Carol, for coming. Josiane, Hiroko, thank you everybody who is here. Cash, MCF, thank you all for coming to my live. I'm sorry about you not being able to hear me earlier, but thank you, and thank God you can hear me now. With every business who is not pet friendly, every single person with a dog needs to be stopped. Trust me when I tell you this. As soon as I walk in, a staff member, very politely of course, should stop me and say, excuse me, ma'am, is this a service dog for a disability? Do not forget the for a disability. Why I say that? Because a lot of people say, is this a service dog? If the person that has the dog does not understand what a service dog is, they're going to say yes, because they feel that providing emotional support is providing a service. So therefore, it has to be a service dog. And that is not the case. So you have to say, is this a service dog for a disability? Most people are not going to say, oh yeah, I have a disability, unless they actually have it. If they say yes, then you proceed to the second question. If they say no, or they try to emotional support, you could tell them, per ADA, and this is how you get them to back off and stop being per the ADA, emotional support dogs do not have public access rights. Okay? If they say yes, if it is a service dog, you go to the next question. The next question is, what task is your service dog trained to perform? Now, emotional support is not a task. Making you feel better is not a task. What a task is basically considered is the dog has to physically do something. Physically do it. Meaning, for example, for the blind person, the dog guides them. With a cardiac alert, the dog, she alerts me. She lets me know before I'm about to have a cardiac episode. That's one of her tasks. She does other stuff as well. She retrieves things for me, even though they're small. She performs pressure therapy when I do have an episode. So they have to physically perform a task. Okay, not just their mere presence. And those are the answers you should be getting. If you get emotional support is my task, no. If you get, oh, she walks with me, or anything other than something that a dog can physically do, that is an emotional support dog. Under the ADA, you can legally say, ma'am or sir, emotional support animals do not have the same public access rights as service dogs. If they say, well, I suffer from anxiety and my dog helps me, I understand that. And once you train your dog to perform tasks for your anxiety or for your depression or whatever it is that they say they have, then that is considered a service dog. While your dog is not trained to perform a task, that is not a service dog. And by the, per the ADA, I have everything linked in my bio. You can refuse service and not have to worry. Now you're going to get those people, I'm going to sue you, blah, 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 blah. That's fine, because guess what? The minute they reach out to an attorney and they tell the attorney what happened, if they don't lie, the attorney is going to say you don't have a case. And if they don't have a service dog when they came into your store, I highly doubt they all of a sudden have a service dog. That's what it boils down to. Now, are you going to have your people who are going to lie? Maybe they've read a few things, they know what to say. Yes. So what's going to happen is this. You're going to ask the person, is this a disability for a service dog? Service dog for disability? Yes. Is what task is trained to do. They're going to come up with something that's going to sound legit. You're going to let them go through. Now, truth be told, if they come in and the dog is well behaved, then there should be no problems regardless. But if it is not a service dog, it's probably going to end up messing up. The minute that, now I'm not telling you to follow them because you don't want to do that. But if the dog is excessively barking or lunging or, trying to, do stuff that you could tell if it's not a service dog, you will notice that. And the minute they do that, you go up to the person and you tell them, sir or ma'am, again, if the dog is a nuisance, per the ADA, every time you want to debunk, you have to say per the ADA, because people think, oh no, I'm allowed to know. But per the ADA, dogs are not allowed to bark excessive, be under control, bark excessively. Now, if you read the ADA, it specifically says that the dog has to be under control. If it's barking excessively, lunging, defecating, or doing these things, and the handler does not get them under control, then you can kick him out. So if a dog barks once, that's not out of control, because that could be the dog alerting the handler. If the dog does something and the handler corrects it, then it's over. No, you cannot kick him out. That's what I'm saying. Don't sit there and follow them. But if the dog is consistently doing, and the handler, the dog is over there doing his thing and the handler's over here, that means they're not stopping the behavior. The dog is not under control, nor are they trying to control it. Therefore, yes, per the ADA, and if you're a business, a manager, or work at a business, get the little cards. They have ADA cards that literally tell you exactly at the bottom when you can kick a service dog out of a business. And quote it. Per the ADA, your dog is doing da-da-da-da, therefore, I can, legally ask you to please remove your dog from the premises. And that's that. If you are in a grocery store, if you work at a grocery store and you see somebody putting their dog on inside the cart, you could tell them, yes, sir or ma'am, is that a service dog? Or whatever, if they answer the questions, please remove your dog from the grocery cart. Oh no, I'm allowed to, because no. Per the ADA, service dogs can either be on the floor, walking next to their handler, or in a sling. I understand. I've heard people even say, oh, the person's really old and they can't, carry their dog. Well, if they can't carry their dog, that means the dog is not used to being carried. Therefore, the dog should be walking next to them. That's simple. You don't have to carry your service dog. If your service dog cannot walk next to you for one reason or another, then you're supposed to have him in a sling. Those are the only two things that the ADA talks about. Next to you or in a sling. Not in a shopping cart, not in a stroller, not in anything else. So again, per the ADA, service dogs are either carried in next to you or in a sling. Now with Cotton, She is trained and she is controlled next to me. She walks next to me. She's only 4 pounds. I could quite literally carry her. I try not to do that. The only times I may carry her either in a sling or in my hand, because I don't feel like going through all that sling thing, especially if it's just a short distance, is if we're in an area where they're going to, it's a lot of people. It's a lot of people and I don't want somebody to step on her. So I'll carry her or put her in a sling. Like when we go cruising for embarkation and debarkation, well, I'm in a wheelchair, but if we're debarking, let's say at a port, I may put her in a sling or carry her. Those are the times I carry my service dog. But again, if you're someone who cannot carry your service dog in a sling, well, then have them walking by you. There should be no reason why a dog is in a shopping cart or a stroller. There isn't. Because again, they cannot task in these things. So that's one end of the spectrum. If you are too afraid to approach people, have one person assigned for that. Reach out to me. I have no problem providing training for your staff so that they can know what leg they can stand on. Quote the ADA. Read the ADA when it comes to service dog. I have it linked in the bio. Read it. Read it for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. The other end of the spectrum are the businesses that have those signs up that says, oh, I reserve the right to refuse service to anybody. Okay. However, if you are and my favorite, I'm a privately owned business. Yeah, most businesses are privately owned. The business doesn't necessarily own all these businesses. But if you serve the public, please hear me. If you serve the public, you must abide by the rules that the ADA, the federal law, the state, you have to abide by those rules. You cannot, I opened up a business, so I'm going to come up with my own rules. It's not a thing. So refusing service to somebody is not something you can do under certain guidelines. And I'm going to tell you right here. Businesses open to the public cannot discriminate or deny service based on protected classes. Federal laws like the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is ADA, prohibits discrimination based on race, color, religion, disability, and age. And before you say, I'm not discriminating. Yes, refusing someone with a legit service dog, okay, is discrimination based on disability, because the service dog is considered a medical equipment, a necessity, something that they need in order to be out in public, survive, whatever the case may be. In my case, for example, with my service dog, I have a heart condition. And my heart condition, while I do have triggers that trigger my heart condition, it can happen at any time for any reason. I could literally have an episode right now. Cotton is trained to alert me before it happens. Why? Because when I go through my episodes, I could pass out, I could faint, I get dizzy, lightheaded, I can't stand up, I have to lay down. If my heart rate goes up too high, I can have a heart attack, a stroke, all of that. So by her alerting me before it happens, I can get myself to a safe location. I could lay down and she could perform her other task, which helps to reduce my heart rate right away. Like if you've seen any of my videos on my channel, you've seen her tasking. You've seen her lay on me, during I was training with her a few times and just happened to catch an alert. Oh, great. And I had my son, or I was able to record it. That is why people need their service dogs even out in public. Some people, why do you need it? That is why, for example, a person like me, I don't go anywhere without her. So telling somebody with a service dog, you cannot come in my establishment, that is discrimination based on disability. Whether you know what the disability is or not, that is what it's basically under that. So ask your questions, make sure you get the right answers. And once you get those questions and the right answers and look at the dog, allow them in. Because if you say I refuse the right to no, that is not a thing. That is not even legal. That's a cute little sign that people put up there. Now, when can you reserve the right to refuse service to somebody, even with a service dog? If their dog acts up, or even, sad to say, some people, they get so annoyed or so, you know, overwhelmed with people coming at them, you know, especially when they come at them rude, that they start yelling and cussing. I've seen a lot of videos of people, get that dog out of here. And instead of educating, they go off the deep end. And I get it. Somebody comes at me a certain way, not me personally, because I know how to handle rude people, but a lot of people don't know how to handle rude people. So they just match energy with energy. And it doesn't get anybody anywhere. You don't get allowed access, and the business doesn't learn anything. So what is the point? And now if you act up, I'm talking to handlers now, if you start getting stupid and yelling and screaming and cussing, once they realize they're wrong, they can now kick you out legally because of the fact that you were yelling and cussing and being disruptive. That's why I tell people, if a business tries to kick you out, remain calm. Start recording. Record your service dog. Do not record the person, record your service dog. Because again, once the person realizes that they are wrong, they're going to try to find any other excuse to kick you out, even though you know why they're really doing it. And your behavior, or they might even lie. If they decide to call the cops, I don't know if you feel like going through this. Unfortunately, sometimes you may have to, if they call the cops, let the cops come. If you're a legit service dog handler. If you're not a legit, run. But if you're a legit service dog handler, let them call the cops. Why? Because preferably the cop knows the rules, knows what to do, knows that you are allowed to be there, knows the law. Carry the ADA card with you. You can get it on Amazon, very inexpensive. You can get a ton of them. Carry it with you at all times. Show it to them. Let them know. But once the cop gets there, the first thing they're going to sit there and do is lie, say that you were going off and being disruptive, or your dog was barking and doing all of this stuff and carrying on. I've actually seen videos of handlers who were recording. The person didn't know they were recording. The cops came, they lied, and because they were able to show the cops the proof, the business had no leg to stand on. So remain calm, educate. If they don't feel like being educated and you have the time, let them call the cops and let them get educated that day. Again, if you have the time. If you don't have the time, then leave. And you can even reach out to, on the ADA card, it actually has a number that you can call to report a business. I have a question. I think some people see a dog that's not a golden or lab and think that's not a service dog. They need to be educated. Exactly. You're absolutely right. Most people have this perception that service dogs are big dogs. Service dogs come in all shapes, sizes, and breeds. Any breed of dog, yes, even a pit bull. I know a lot of people have even a pit bull can be a service dog. The issue is not the breed or the size of the dog. The issue is the dog itself. I think I said this last week. Think of humans. As humans, any human could be a police officer. Any human could be a firefighter. But can any human be a police officer or a firefighter? Meaning, do they have the temperament? Do they have the patience? Can they be trained and do all the training that's required? And for a lot of people, the answer is no. They're human. Yes, they qualify to become many of these things. However, they just cannot do it for one reason or another. It's the same thing with dogs. Any dog or breed or size can be a service dog. Cotton is a service dog. She's fully trained. She's only 4 pounds. You know, so any dog can do it. It just depends on the task that they're being trained on. Obviously, I can have Cotton for mobility issues. So make sure that when you're training your dog, you're training them for what they can actually do. She's medical alert. So yes, she can alert me. So if you're one of those businesses that think, oh, I can I have the right to refuse service to anybody, that is not a thing. In the bio, I literally have everything linked of everything that I am talking about. Click on it, educate yourself. If you are a manager, an owner, an employee, educate yourself, because you also put yourself and leave yourself open for lawsuits from people who have legit service dogs. Now, what happens? Every single person that comes into an establishment should be questioned. Every single person. It doesn't matter. Why? Because You cannot come and question one person because they look like they have a legit service dog and then not another person. No, question everybody. Everybody who walks in, is that a service dog for disability? Yes. What task is it trained to perform? Da, 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 da. Okay, thank you. Welcome to our staff. Everybody. And by doing that, you will wean out the people who don't have legit service dogs. People say, oh no, they don't want to be questions. A real legit person, even a person with PTSD, would appreciate, and I can't speak for them, I'm just my opinion. Every real service dog handler would appreciate a business that questions everybody. Why? Because if you're questioning me and you're doing your job when it comes to allowing me with my service dog in, and you're questioning everybody, I can walk in and maybe rest a little easy, knowing that fake service dogs are not going to be in there. I don't have to worry about a dog attacking my dog because you've done your job. Now, can, like I said before, somebody give the right answers, go in with the dog that's not real? Yes, but if you do your job, it'll be far and few in between. Not only that, but again, that's the second that dog messes up for real, messes up for real and is out of control or whatever, you can kick them out. You can kick them out. You do this enough times, we're going to stop this epidemic of dogs everywhere. I love dogs. I have a dog. My dog goes everywhere. Why? Because she's a service dog. And even I sometimes have what are people calling it now? Dog fatigue. I get it. I understand those people, who don't like dogs, who are afraid of dogs, who are allergic to dogs. If you have a real service dog, your dog being anywhere is not going to disrupt anybody. You know how many times, and not because she's small, but you know how many times I've been told at this point, I didn't even know there was a dog here? That's a compliment. That's a compliment for somebody to tell me I didn't even know there was a dog here, because they're not supposed to know. It's not something that they should need to be bothered with. They shouldn't arrange, people should not have to arrange their life and their everything because I have a service dog there. You want to say something? So that if you're in that end of the spectrum where you just kick everybody out, yes, you leave yourself open for lawsuits. Don't do it. If you have a question, please feel free to ask it. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell for notification if you haven't done so already. But yes, talking about businesses, does anybody have any questions? Anything that they feel I haven't covered or talked about, something that they want to know? If you work at a business, I don't mind if you want to share a scenario and how you should handle it. Please feel free to do so. Put it in the chat. If you're watching this on replay, put your scenario or your question in the comments, and I will be more than happy to answer it. I have here some more notes. Give me 1 second. Sorry, Cotton is covering me. Here, she's drinking water. Sorry about that. Okay, so I covered last week what are service animals, so feel free to watch that. Service animals must be under control, the times. Now, per the ADA, and again, I'm quoting this from the ADA, allergies and fear of dogs are not valid reasons for denying access or refusing service to people using service animals. When a person who is allergic to dog dander and a person who uses a service animal must spend time in the same room or facility, for example, in a school, a classroom, or a homeless shelter, they both should be accommodated by assigning them, different areas of the establishment. So I'm not unreasonable to think that if I go in now, I'm not, for example, if it's 100 degrees outside and you're telling me, oh, you have to sit outside because you have a dog. No, sorry, I'm not going to sit outside in that 100-degree weather because I have a dog. My dog would tuck underneath the table, underneath my chair, and we will be just fine. However, I'm not unreasonable if somebody who is allergic to dogs or whatever, and they sit me a little further because of them, I'm okay with that. I'm not unreasonable. But again, I'm not going to sit down in 100-degree weather outside, just because that's where you want to stick me because I have a service dog. No. And let me see. let me see here. I have a question. Do you have to have a doctor's recommendation or prescription to be paired with a service dog? Legally, no, you don't have to have that. If you go through a program, I don't know what because they have different programs that do service dog training, and maybe those programs might require that. I don't know. I couldn't tell you about a program, but to have a service dog, you do not have it. The only thing I've seen as far as needing any kind of paperwork from a doctor or a physician for a service dog is for housing purposes. And I'm not even sure if that's for service dog. I think that's more for an emotional support. But as far as a service dog, no, there is no registration. And I know a lot of businesses, they feel, hey, how what do I do with all these people walking into my business with a dog? Know the law, know your rights, follow them, be consistent. Trust me when I tell you, if you're consistent with it, you're not going to have any problems of having people in there with fake service dogs or with pets. A fake service dog is a dog that has been identified as a service dog who isn't really. Somebody showing up somewhere with a pet. You see, she's smelling me. She was looking at me. I know I've been doing a lot of talking. But a person showing up to an establishment with a pet is not a fake service dog. Not unless they have a vest on it that says fake service dog, and it's not. That's the only way it's fake. So I'm not going to call it fake service dog. I'm going to call people showing up to your establishment with a pet. There is no paperwork for, I'm sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought here. When she was smelling me, I thought maybe she was about to alert me to an episode. I said, that'll be cool, getting a live alert. So prescription and all that, no, you do not need it. I don't know if you need it for to get it through a program or anything like that. Service dogs can be trained through an organization that trains the service dogs and then provides you with the service dog. Can be trained by an individual who is a trainer and trains your service dog, or can actually be trained by the handler. Cotton is considered owner trained because it wasn't a program or anything like that. However, I did have the guidance of a professional because I'm not a dog trainer and by no means. So every week I would meet, for I don't know how many months. I want to say, actually we still meet. So training never ends. But yes, we used to meet once a week consistently. She would almost like test her, see how she's doing with her tasking, and then either move on to the next thing that we're training her on, or just keep practicing what we're training her on. I would practice at home for all her training, and then when we would meet in public to almost like test her out with the training, and that's how we did it. So yes, service dogs can be owner trained. It doesn't have to, and that is why, per the ADA, there's no registration, there's no anything. But trust me when I tell you, if businesses do their job, if they're not afraid of doing their job and they do it right, we will get rid of this epidemic of dogs everywhere, this dog fatigue. You will actually see service dogs where they belong, and pets where they belong. There are a lot of businesses, there's hotels, there's restaurants, there's even a cruise line that allow you to bring your pets there. So it's not like somebody who loves their little pet cannot take them. There are places. You just have to find the right places that allows your pet to go with you, because regular places do not allow pets to go with you, only service dog. And if your dog is not a service dog, there's actually, one thing I did want to mention. Service dogs in training, very, very important. Service dog in training. Florida, I don't know where you live, but Florida is one of the few states that allows service dog in training to have public access right. But this is the thing. You're not going to take your misbehaving dog somewhere and then call it a service dog in training. There's stipulations behind that as well. And that stipulation is this. Before your dog can go out in public, you have to, it has to be well behaved. So even though it's not fully trained, it still has to be well behaved. Well, you might think, because I thought that, I'm like, wait a minute. So if I cannot train my dog, out there, how is she going to get used to? Thank God I had a trainer. That's what she was there for. She was able to, no, you train your dog at home, in your backyard, in your neighborhood. You train them how to behave. And then when you take them out, they know how to be. You don't train, you take them out already knowing bare minimum, basic commands, basic this. Once they know how to behave, you could walk in your neighborhood without them being reactive and barking at everything that moves, a person, a dog, a animal, anything. Once they get to that point, then you can take them out. There's even public access tests. The AKC has several public access tests. Cotton has already passed 2 of them. There's 3. And it goes like this. You have to take the first one before you can take any of the other 2. And it's almost like a level thing. Well, Cotton took the first one, and because the second one is now mandatory, she took the third one, and she has passed all 3. She has passed the mandatory one and the hardest one, which is the AKC, the CGC Urban. She's passed that. She's passed them both. She's has her title and everything because she's passed those testing. She's done those training. And it takes a lot of hours, a lot of time to train a dog, not just for the tasking part of the service dog, but for the obedience, for the public access. Again, you cannot take your dog out. And then if you don't do that public access test, that's fine, because it's not something that's mandatory. But your dog has to be at the standards of that public access test in order for you to actually take them out. Now, it also says handlers, a service dog who is in training must be with either the trainer, it must be with the trainer and must be in the middle of training. So in other words, when you take your dog out, you have to actually be training it. So if you're not the trainer, you're actually not allowed to be there with a service dog in training. You know what I'm saying? So look it up. It's there. So because I'm the trainer, anywhere I take her, that is a training opportunity. When she was in training, it is a training opportunity. And I took every time I went anywhere, not that I go out often, but when I did, I took every opportunity I could to train her. Okay, well, this is a new environment. Let me train her how to react to new environment, people, other animals, noises, smells, food. Everything was a training opportunity, but I actually trained. I didn't just walk in, let her do whatever she wanted to do, and then tell somebody, oh yeah, she's just in training and that's why she's misbehaving. No. Now, dogs are not robots. I do want to make sure I say that very loud and clear for the people in the back. Dogs are not robots. That is why even the ADA allows grace. They don't say, oh, the minute the dog starts barking, kick him out. The minute the dog does this, kick it out. No, it doesn't say that. It literally says, and if the handler is not controlling it or attempting to control it, I have to have the exact wordage of it. If it is not trying to control it, then you could kick him out. So even the ADA allows grace. Why? Because even the ADA knows service dogs are not robots. They're going to mess up. They're going to do something. But it is my job as the handler to ensure that even if she messes up, I bring her back to focus. I bring her back to, no, baby, this is not the time. You cannot do this not right now. You're working. Remind her, things like that. So it is very important to know, if you take anything from today, if you are a business, learn the law, read the law, follow the law. If you're on this end of the spectrum where you just let anybody in with a dog because you're too afraid, don't do that. You're not preventing a lawsuit. You're actually gonna end up getting sued if a fake service dog attacks a real service dog, because the first thing that they're gonna look at is, hey, did you ask the questions? Did you let the person in? Now, if you ask the questions and the person just lied to you and they were allowed in because you did your job, guess what? Now you're not held liable. You're not held liable because you did your job. That person just lied. And Florida does have